Good evening and welcome to a Monday night edition of the Magpie Circle podcast. Looking ahead to Grimsby. There's always a bit of spice in those games with the Mariners, isn't there? On the heels of a five-star performance against Tranmere, clean sheet, 5 goals. I think it takes us to the highest scorers at home in League Two this season, which I must admit surprised me a little bit when Richard Stanton told me about that one earlier today. But hey, we're providing entertainment in the autos as we speak. But MK Dons can move up into third if they were to win at Walsall tonight, as we're broadcasting live this episode on Monday evening. Your thoughts and views, as always, Lee Ndlovu on the score sheet. 2 goals, an assist or 2. Striker's critique from Mark Stallard coming up very shortly. Penalty gate doesn't matter as much, does it? We were 4-0 up at the time. As I read it, Jody Jones was the dedicated penalty taker or nominated, but Matty Dennis took it. They all kissed and made up after the game, says Martin Patterson. So that one has been nipped in the bud. Scott Robertson, I thought, did very well. Ollie Norburn still waiting, and will probably be waiting all week to find out the extent of his injury and whether Matty Palmer will now come back into contention ahead of Saturday against Grimsby. A second back-to-back 3 o'clock kickoff. Thank you as always to our official partners, JH Accountants, who were the match sponsors on Saturday. You may have saw James walking out onto the pitch with his family before kickoff, and also to our other official partners, Big Shed, Trent Navigation, and Over the Road. We'll get a few messages in a moment. Stell critique, job well done. Tranmere might not have been great. I suspect their supporters will be using rather more direct terms, both on terms of that 90 minutes and recent performances as well. But the perfect antidote, if we needed one, to 1 point from 2 trips on the road to Bromley and Shrewsbury.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what's not to like about a 5-0 home victory? Superb, really good performance. And I agree. I mean, in no way to take away from Nott's performance. I thought Tranmere were really poor. The sort of performance, I'll be honest, speaking after the game to a couple of people, I said I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a manager go in Andy Crosby. It's that sort of performance with the form that they're in. That could be the culmination of a managerial reign. It isn't as we sit here now, but I thought they were really poor. But that's nothing to do with Notts. You've got to take advantage of teams, and Notts made them look poor. But Notts played superbly well. Some really good performances, a really good response after Shrewsbury, where we were a little bit. We kept the ball well, didn't we? But we weren't effective. Well, we were absolute polar opposite, weren't we, Saturday? We were absolutely effective, clinical, had chances, took the majority of them. Still could have had 1 or 2 more, but you can't complain at 5-0. It doesn't come along too often.
I'm just trying to pull up Adam Kent's messages. I'll just wait a little bit longer. Oh, right, yeah. To tidy up assists and pre-assists, to tidy everything up, I thought we'll just dive in and nail that one. Adam Kent says, regarding the pre-assists on Saturday, as our first was an own goal, no assist awarded, so neither pre-assist either. I wondered if Ndlovu would have got the pre-assist for that, but apparently he doesn't. Hang on, these are the rules for pre-assists. Hang on, he's given me some more chapter and verse here earlier. The second goal, that was Robbie Cerula Ndlovu. Third was a high press assist from Grant. No pre-assist. And the fourth, give the pre-assist Ndlovu to Jones. No pre-assist or assist for the penalty. Doesn't Jody get a pre-assist, Adam, for not grabbing the ball off Matty Dennis? Anyway, right, I digress. Let's get a few thoughts from the flock. Richard Elvian, hoping Ollie Norburn's injury is not too serious and that Matt Palmer and Jatta aren't too far away from a return to the team. Martin Blaney, evening gents, a 5-star show on Saturday. A pity the scoreboard wasn't working properly in the family stand. You can't have everything, Martin, all right? You can't have everything. Jonathan Hammocks, we've got a few from Jonathan. I believe he got to the game on Saturday, so very well done, Jonathan. Everyone, evening all, couldn't have wished for a better game on Saturday. My new one-to-one carer, it was his first game and he was blown away. He wants to know when he can come again with me. Sorry, my voice control is playing up with my word translator into type. I was particularly impressed with Lee up front. I'm looking forward to the Grimsby home game. Bring it on. And finally, I have to pay tribute to the Tranmere fans. That was a great effort for a team that is struggling, and 2.5 hours away at least. Credit to them, making it another 10,000 crowd. Nigel Bosworth, evening everyone. Let's give Grimsby a belting on Saturday. The Filippoli. You could see the Tranmere manager's signal for his keeper to go down from low Earth orbit. Yeah, the cops' response to that was quite funny, I thought. Jurgen Pye, evening all. Finally, we had a striker who could play up front on his own. Was hoping Dennis would still start alongside him, but Lee did great on his own. Thought Grant played well when he came on for Norburn. Hoping Walsall beat MK Dons tonight to stop them going above us. Peter Andrew says keepers going down is a pain in the modern game, but for me a bigger one is all this holding at set pieces. Paul Cuthbert, Grant has had a mention at last. He was excellent when he came on. Didn't like the penalty issue, bad by Dennis, rather reflects his apparent impetuous nature. His bookings bear this out. Jody, though, clearly sulked after the penalty incident. I suspect Dennis would not have done that at 0-0. He was happy for Jones to take it at Bromley. Ian Cooksey, new rules FIFA going to bring into the World Cup, which will address the time taken for substitutes and also inverted commas feigning injury. If you go off injured, you have to stay off for a minute. Substituted players have 10 seconds to get off the pitch or the substitution cannot happen. Yeah, one of my clients is Major League Soccer and they've pioneered that for a year or two now, and it has made a substantial difference in the inverted commas time it takes for substitutions to be made, which often now take a minute a substitution, if not more. Ian Cooksey, the 8-second rule is also going to be applied to throw-ins and goal kicks. Magic Boots Agana, Mrs. Magic Boots Agana, evening everyone. Any updates regarding our injured players ahead of the weekend? Norburn, I suspect, may be out for a while. The club does keep the injury cards close to its chest, Mrs. Magic Boots. Adam will be doing his best for Radio Nottingham on Friday to see what he can find out, but I wouldn't be holding your breath too much on finding too much out in the next few days. Striker's critique then. It was obviously a 5-star show by all and sundry, but clearly Ndlovu takes a lot of the headlines. There'd been debate and speculation about starting him as a 9. Don't think he could have done any better. 2 goals helped set others up. Came off after the hour. What did you think?
Yeah, I thought excellent. What can you say? I think when you look at, it's gonna link back, isn't it, to a January transfer window, which has been a talking point for Notts for a few years. The recruitment and that in January. You always look at what's available, and sometimes the sort of you're fishing in a very shallow pond. The players that are available can be available for sort of spurious reasons, and not necessarily the players that you want. So to get somebody like him in, I think he's a real boon for Notts because he can do a bit of everything. And again, everything I say now, I'm going to praise him to the hilt, but I am going to caveat that at the start by saying, obviously, based on League Two levels and things like that. But he's a striker that we've seen, obviously, in non-league as well. He's physical. He can play with his back to goal. He's robust. He's strong. As you can see, he's not over 6 foot. Of course he isn't, but he's strong. He can play with his back to goal and hold the ball up. That's why I mentioned last week about maybe him starting against Shrewsbury away to give us that little bit of a platform to play into a front man and have runners off him. He can also move. He's mobile. He's a willing runner without being absolutely lightning quick. He's mobile enough. At 31, he can do a bit of everything. Now, the weakness in his stats, if you like, we look at him, he's not ever really been a 20-goal a season striker. Absolutely prolific. But he does a lot of good work for the team outside the penalty area as well. And I would think maybe in his career, he's not played for a team like Notts that will have as much of the ball, that will create chances for that single spearhead striker like he did. Now, it's not always going to work like Saturday, where, he gets a one-on-one even before he scores one at the first of his 2 goals. But he's the sort of person that you come in and go, well, if he was brought in January with a view to being a backup third-choice striker, if you like, behind Jatta and Dennis, to already now he's had 1 start, and you go, well, do you know what? Can you play him as the number 1 striker? Can you play Dennis off him? When Jatta's fit, then how does that fit in? That's a different question. But I think he offers a bit of everything. And I like that in a striker. You can play the ball into him. He's going to make it stick, and you can get runs off him. He's also going to work defenders. And as he said in his post-match, he likes to be a nuisance to defenders. That's exactly what you want. That is exactly what you want a centre-forward. That's part of a centre-forward's job. Don't let the defenders have it easy. At least let them know they've been in a game, even if you don't have a great game, even if you don't score. Let them know they've been in a game, been in a battle, that they've had to run around, they've had to work hard, and they've been stretched. So I thought he was excellent. I thought he showed bits of everything at the weekend. Great to get his first goal, and then comes his second, because that helps you feel part of it. And his post-match interviews, quality. If you get a chance to listen to that, sounds a good character, will fit into the dressing room. And like I said, I don't know what I mentioned on here, we got to speak to him before the Fleetwood game, when we saw you under the stands, and we just spoke to him, and he was saying how pleased he was. Lives in and around the Leicester area, so he's back up closer to home, loving this chance. And I think he's 31, isn't he? Loving this opportunity to be at the top of League Two at a club like Notts, closer to home. So he comes as a 31-year-old who's maybe got the bit between his teeth, wanting to impress. Not a 31-year-old who's sort of seeing out time on his career. He's seeing this as a chance, a real opportunity for him, in his 30s, to really impress. And hopefully with that sort of desire and attitude and the attributes that he's got, he can be a massive, massive benefit for Notts for the remainder of the season and beyond that.
Yeah, it seems to have a real hunger and appetite. And I think you've touched on it there. And I mentioned this on the show on Sunday morning. Sometimes players that don't come through an academy system have to do the hard yards, daytime job, getting in a car, a minibus, traveling 80 miles for an away game, all that kind of thing. Sometimes they can be a bit more rounded. And as you've said there, he's had to wait a long time for his chance. And he does seem to have a real hunger and appetite to make it work now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he comes with, a real good attitude. You can tell he's delighted to get this opportunity. You could understand at 31, you'd maybe think that chance has gone. To come to a club like Notts at the top of League Two, pushing for promotion. And I say geographically for him, it's obviously better. He was quick to say that when he started. Came in, he was full of a bit of man flu, I think was the term. He said he was under the weather when he first came, but didn't stop him later that day coming on and putting one on a plate for Matty Dennis, did it, for the winner at Fleetwood. And I thought Saturday he was, I say superb, exactly what you want in a centre forward, not giving the centre halves minutes, a second on the ball. So it was perfect Saturday, but that's in a real good team performance as well. But I think he could lead the line with that in terms of, he's saying some players can be too big to close down. I'm not saying that it's like that, but some players can see it as, well, I'm a goal scorer, I'm a striker, I don't need to do the hard work. And it is hard work, closing down, pressing. Believe me, I do know about that. That was never my forte. But I think he comes here with a sort of, level-headedness of realising this is a real opportunity. At this stage in my career, it's one I don't want to waste. And I think he's going to give it everything. And I think that means it really is good recruitment. We've questioned January recruitment in previous seasons, but I think in terms of him and James Belshaw particularly, they're two that could be real key elements to get Notts to achieving what we want to achieve this season.
Vaughan down in Sherborne in Dorset. Great result on Saturday. A wonderful morale booster after the previous defeat at Shrewsbury. However, I do think that the final result flattered us a little as we hardly had anything to defend. Kay says, evening all, looking forward to Grimsby. Saturday, wouldn't say no to 4 more goals in front of the Kop. Evening from Stephen Newton. Simon Passingham says, evening everyone. What a win that was on Saturday. Not too often we get to see a 5-goal thriller at the Lane. Long may it continue. Let's hope for more of the same against Grimsby. Hello from Karen Knight. Bale and Ball. That was the big win I was feeling. The only downside, I hope Dennis didn't upset Jody too much. I think that's all water under the bridge now. Bale and Ball. Marcus Darwin, great to see some goals flying in at the Kop end. Tim Watchorn, evening. Saturday could go either way against Grimsby. Notts will have to be at the best. How well I remember the 5-5 draw. What a match that was in Grimsby. Evening from Martin Shipley. Great performance against Tranmere. Very direct and positive. More of the same against Grimsby, please, lads. High five, everyone, says Pash. Royston, evening all. Meadow Lane will be bouncing on Saturday. Richard Hawksworth. Fresh from his skiing excursions. Evening all. Wow, we have a real chance now, don't we? Ndlovu, a great addition as a third striker. Other teams slipping up. We need to hold our nerve. Evening from Paul Huskisson. Adam Kent. Oh, we've done the pre-assists. Richard Elvian, MK Dons, a few players out tonight. Let's hope Walsall can make it count. Happy with anything bar an MK Dons win. Evening all, says Mark Williams, Island Pie. What a win on Saturday. That's been coming as we had to start converting the chances we've been creating. Unfortunately, I missed the game. As I was stuck helping a mechanic fix a mower. Oh, there you go. Takes all sorts. Duncan Comrie, evening. Mrs. Magic Boots Agana. Who will start up top on Saturday? Ndlovu or Dennis or both? Maybe Jatta. I think not, but you never know. I think Lee may get the shout, as Grimsby are always a bit physical, and think he can give as much as he gets. Steve Silver, there's Shuey. Nick Cerula, this lad has been outstanding, has so much ability, twisting and turning and pace is a joy to watch. I don't think gets talked about much like Robertson. Lippy Jane, I did think Platt's yellow was ridiculous to get, totally unnecessary. Rosemary Mans will be listening to us and watching Walsall MK Dons on the telly. Evening from Ian Haywood. I've been saying it for a while. Someone is going to get a hammering. Nice for Lee to start and get 2 goals. He can do 60 minutes next Saturday for me as well. Good morning, evening from Australia, from Robert Minister. What a Saturday. Yes, Tranmere were poor, but Ndlovu was excellent. His strength and hold-up play was top-notch, but his running too was quality. Rich Hawksworth, both Jody and Dennis seem to have an edge to them. I'm sure it was just a storm in a teacup. Stell, let's put this one to bed. I think he was on penalty duties sometimes during your career. What did you make of it all?
Yeah, it's a little bit of pantomime sort of stuff, really. That's the way I described it on the radio. Well, I make of it that the fact that Matty Dennis had took one penalty earlier on in this season and scored it. Jody had taken three and scored them, obviously most recently at Bromley. So Jody's the penalty taker, pretty much. But because the situation of the game at 4-0, Matty Dennis maybe looked at it and goes, well, I haven't got a goal. You've already scored. I'm going to get the ball. Gets the ball, bit of a tete-a-tete, carries on with it, and maybe a little bit. I say a little bit naughty, but he's a centre forward. He wants to score goals, so I can't blame him. I would want to, I would want a centre forward. You want to score goals. Chance for a free shot from 12 yards out. Who's not going to want to take it when you're 4-0 up? So look, I think Jody would have been the designated penalty taker. Would Matty Dennis have done that had it been 0-0, 1-0, 1-1? Don't know. Possibly, because he would have backed himself. Both of them got 100% records from the penalty spot this season.
Yeah.
So, they could both legitimately make a claim. But I think Jody was the official penalty taker. Maybe he's a bit disgruntled, think he's had one took off him, Jody. But like I say, it might be a word or two afterwards, and then it's dealt with and done and behind you, and nothing you can do about it. So, the main bit is we got the 3 points. The main bit is he scored the penalty, Matty Dennis, because it might have been mentioned a few times for a week or two if he didn't. But he scores it, 5-0 win. Like I say, a little bit of a falling out, but so what? That happens. Like I say, they do not forget that everybody, to have a good dressing room, you don't have to all be best friends and nicey. So, like I say, there'll be falling outs over a 9-10 month season. If that for me was just a little bit of a impetuousness that you're in the zone, you're in the game. That is work time. When the game is on, the 90 minutes on, that is work mode. Okay, so you're not there to please anybody except the fans, yourself, your manager. Do you know what I mean? So, look, it happens. They'll put it right. That's fine. Move on. It's a storm in a teacup, but the main bit is he scored the goal, scored the pen. They'll discuss it behind closed doors, decide who's the penalty taker for the next game, and then we'll go from there. But like I say, it's something and nothing. It's things that happen. Don't make too big a deal out of it. We move on.
89th minute, 0-0 against Grimsby Saturday. We get a penalty. They're both on the pitch. Who takes it?
Jody, probably, but they both want to take it. But I think, like I say, all I think it does, it promotes a conversation at some point, whether it's straight after the game or whether it's some point this week, almost exactly saying that. Saying it's all right, ripping the ball out of the hand. Or I didn't really see what actually happened until the confrontation afterwards, But, like I say, it prompts that conversation. Okay, fine. We can all stick our hand up for a penalty at 4-0 up with minutes to go, and I'm not suggesting he wouldn't stick his hand up, at 0-0 because he's taken 2 and scored 2 now this season. So they both obviously want to take penalties, but I think all it does is promote a conversation, a clear right. If it's 0-0, whatever, the next one we have, Jody, you're on it, or Matty, you're on it. But either way, that's what's happening. We're not having, pantomime bloody playground villains every week. So, we decide on that and that's it, done and dusted.
Yeah, because there have been precedents for this, haven't they? Chelsea had a right bundle, didn't they? And I think it was a lot worse than the Notts one on Saturday. I don't know if it was last year or the start of this year. There was a right Fred Carno circus. I think it was Nicholas Jackson or something. They were virtually coming to blows with it, if I remember rightly, for that penalty.
Yeah, I'd say it can, because it's such an obvious chance to score goals, and particularly if players are having a bit of a tough time, it's a free, cheap chance to improve your stats and get your goal, And I think it's sort of exaggerated in the Premier League because there's so much focus on it. But your career sometimes as a striker, particularly, your career gets sort of condensed down to stats. Maybe more so now than ever before. But, it's an extra goal. In 2 months' time, nobody's too concerned about where that goal came from. It looks better on your record. So, look, there's reasons behind it. And, they will both back themselves to take it. I'd like to see, 10 players all wanting to take a penalty. But the fact of the matter is, you do have a designated penalty taker. It's I suppose it's a little bit similar to when somebody's on a hat trick. You know, if Ndlovu had been on the pitch,
Yeah,
would he have
yeah,
been given it? You know, to get his hat trick. You know, there's all sort of quirks. The fact that we're 4-0 up means it's a non-story. You know, it's not going to affect the result for the team. It's not going to affect anything other, really, than personal milestones and personal stats. Yes, it's 1 goal to the goal difference for the team, but whoever takes it, you would back and they would back themselves to score. So the team is not going to be affected by it. It's just down to a personal, sort of selfish thing. And do you know what? I don't mind players being a little bit selfish.
indeed. There we go. A good striker can't be anything but selfish, I guess, in many respects. Was it Gary Lineker always used to say, even if we'd lost a game, coming home on the bus, if I'd scored, I never felt quite as bad. You know, it's the way of the world, isn't it? Richard Elvin, same lineup as Saturday, bar Grant for Norburn, if required. Robert Minister, Lee continues to start for me until Jatta is 100% ready. Talk about the Tranmere fans from Ian Hayward. Richard Elvin reminding us all it's a very narrow pitch at Shrewsbury. I think Stowe was reminding me before the show they want something like 4 on the bounce at the minute. They're probably one of the teams you don't want to be playing right now.
Yeah.
Marcus Darwin, I was happy to see Dennis take the penalty and score, if only for the confidence. He seemed to need it. Let's hope he scores a couple next week. Dale Pikett, since Mr. Belshaw came in, Notts have only conceded 5 goals in 9 games and only conceded 2 in 1 game, only once in the last 14 games. You sound like someone who supplies statistics to Mark Stallard, Dale. Colin Metcalf, big difference from last season is we have players that can cover injuries and not weaken the team. It feels different this year, as I feel we are one of a few teams with a real chance. Greza Maxwell done the double over Tranmere now this season, scoring 7 goals and only conceding 1. Richard Foster, any news on Jaden Luca's return date? Could be important for the last 10 games if fit. We'll pass that on to Adam on Injury Corner that he always gets into with differing degrees of responses from Mr. Patterson later this week. Ian Cooksey. Breaking news, Barry Cotter has left Barnsley with immediate effect. I assume he's not at Notts anymore. Yeah, it's this proposed move to Derry, I think, that's been on the go for a little while now. And I think there's been a hitch or two or red tape or whatever you want to call it. I did see something saying it was due to go through today. So looks like Barry has now finally got his move. So potentially he will be up against Mia Traore and Will Jarvis when Derry play Shelbourne. There you go, 3 Notts players or former Notts players in an Irish Premier League game. Derek Flowers, if the ball person, he said boy or girl, but I'll call it ball person, gives the ball to our player and he crosses it and Ndlovu scores, does the ball person get the credit for a pre-assist? Right, let's just pop back to Stout, and I'm just sorting those out. Grimsby Saturday. Obviously, we're banging form after having had a bad 4 days. It's the way it works in football, isn't it? I think a lot of people were surprised to see the Ndlovu on his own up front and there not be a Matt Dennis. Does Martin just simply reward the players with unchanged? Does he tweak? Do we have do we have Dennis back in or not? Gazing into your crystal ball, are you expecting many change subject to injuries or more of the same?
Well, yeah, I'd say subject to injuries, obviously. I would expect the same team. There's no midweek game. There's a full week between games. And I say, I think he's shown has shown his hand many times this season that if you come in, you perform, you get the win, he doesn't make changes for change's sake. Now, whereas in previous years we've been talking about managing minutes and all this sort of thing, Martin Patterson, I say, is very much of a mind to, yes, he obviously has all the same sort of data, but very much of the belief that, do you know what, if you're playing, if you're telling me you're fit, if I've got no other reason to change anything, I'm going to keep the same winning team, and I don't see why you wouldn't. And again, I think that all feeds into this competition for places that we've got. The fact that you come in and do well, you will stay in the team. It doesn't matter what your name is or who you are or what you've done before. It's what you are doing now. And it all bangs into the mantra of the next game is the most important. The here and now is what matters, not what happened 2 months ago or what you've done in the 4 months up to this. So, and say you've got Matty Dennis, who's leading scorer, who's spent a fair amount of the time this season on the bench, and can't sort of stay in the starting 11 for too long, maybe because of what Martin wants from his starting lineup in terms of work rate and things like that. So, it's difficult. We don't think Jatta's going to be fit, but even if he was fit, does he come straight back in? Do you tell Leon Love, oh, thanks very much for Saturday, but see you later, sit on the bench? That would be a tough conversation. But I don't envisage it happening. So, in short, I think it stays the same team. Now, in reality, Ollie Norburn might be the question mark in that, with him going off, because he's not the sort of player I don't think who would go off easily. So we don't know anything about his injury. Again, not to always play the cards close to the chest in terms of letting out information about severity of injuries, length of time missing. But, you've got to say that you'd have to say he's probably a doubt. So then what do you do? Then, assuming Matt Palmer isn't fully fit to go, then probably you drop Tom Iapenda back and bring somebody else into that number 10 position, possibly a Matty Dennis from the start, possibly a Connor Grant from the start, or possibly them two, and put Tyrese Hall on the bench, or Mas Kouiar, who started the other day. Maybe, I'd say, although he didn't grab any of the headlines, he was part of a fantastic performance and a 5-0 win, so doesn't deserve to be dropped or left out. So I think it'll be the same. Ollie Norburn might be the one that is the change that then prompts maybe one or two other changes because of the positional change. But I think he's played his cards, or made his hand very clear this season, in that if you perform, if you get a win, I'm not going to change it for the sake of it.
Not for the first time recently, points out Andy Easom. We were the only East Midlands side to take 3 points at the weekend. There we go. Jurgen Pye is confirming to say that the Barnsley official website says that Barry Cotter has now moved to Ireland. Richard Elvian, the way Ndlovu took the ball off the defender in the first half when he didn't convert was some way as he did against us and scored in the Boreham Wood playoff semi. Yeah, he's got previous against scoring for us. Kay thought it was interesting when Lee was interviewed after the game. Said he'd struggled getting up to the speed of Notts. Think Saturday he certainly looked on it. Andy Easom, really hoping the skip is available at the weekend. Saying my prayers that Ollie hasn't joined AJ in the treatment room long term. I wonder if Ndlovu would have got his hat-trick had he stayed on a bit longer, asks Essie Kent. Certainly would have been interesting if he was still on the pitch when we got the penalty, Essie. John Parr. Ndlovu has made Pato have more selection options. Massive upgrade on my Traore. Martin, can anyone explain why Iapenda had to go off? Brackets, the physio didn't come on. Yet later in the game, their player didn't have to. Sure, the ref stopped the game both times, then gave a drop. Ball, missed that one. Can't help you out there, Martin, I'm afraid. Paul Arnold is confirming Derry City have announced the signing of Cotter. I think James McLean is over there as well. So sounds like Derry City are spending a few quid in the Irish League Premier title. Richard Elvian. Shame for me that Ndlovu didn't get a chance to come on, went 4 up. I think he's still doing his shuttle runs up and down. AD Clark, there's AD. Ndlovu will keep Jatta out on that form. He was like Stell in his prime. Defenders won't want to play against him. 3 informed strikers, and surely we get over the line this season. Who was saying in January we didn't need a third striker because they'd never play? Righto. Adam Kent. My son and I noticed a significant improvement in the number of low fast balls into the box causing problems. Did notice he ran quite a few channels as well. Very willing worker, I thought, in addition to the goals. Terry Robertson would love to hear Stell's critique of Tom Iapenda. Massive fan of his here. Mr. Iapenda, you weren't a midfielder, Stell, obviously.
No.
But legs for it like. But it appears to me that Martin Patterson seems to have developed him very well this season, because he didn't really have much senior football when he came here, did he? And sometimes you get fits and troughs, don't you, with younger players. Like Tyrese has been at 1 minute, 5 goals, whatever it is. The next, we don't see him for a long time. Iapenda just seems to have grown in stature and trust from the manager as the season has gone on.
Yeah, look, I rave about Tommy Iapenda, really. I did on the radio on Saturday, and again, it was another superb game for him. You look at the chance in the first half for Ndlovu, where he's one-on-one with the keeper makes the block. It comes from Tommy Iapenda closing down and winning the ball, actually going taking the ball away from the defender, and it runs through for Ndlovu. The third goal comes from him closing down, where they try and play out from the back. Was that the third goal? I think it was. And he did it time and again. And he's got this, we saw George Abbott last season, didn't we? Sort of develop throughout the season, grow as a player, come as a young player and sort of grow as the season went on. Different sort of player, of course. But Tommy Iapenda's doing exactly the same, but he's got that physicality that for modern day football in the middle of the park, you love to see. Personally, I know he's been playing as the withdrawn number 10 in recent games, and he did a few times earlier on in the season. I personally prefer him coming from deeper. I think he's got the physicality and the legs to get up and down and still get in them advanced positions, but also do the defensive side of the game as well. He's all over the pitch, wins tackles. I mean, the modern day phrase is your duels, don't they? They call them duels. How many duels do you win? Well, he must win a good percentage of his duels because he's just all over the pitch, physical. And like I say, sometimes it can go unseen and unspotted because, again, he's not one of them. He's not scoring 10, 12 goals from midfield. He's got a couple, but he does so much in terms of breaking up play, but then accepting the ball in areas. He can deal with it with his feet. Recycle the ball, but does so much work for the team. He's a really good player that all his teammates will love seeing. And I think he's developed, and I think it's credit to Martin and the coaching staff, yes, but it's also credit to the lad as well, because this is him making his way. This is your opportunity. And I say football, you don't get too many opportunities in football. You have to take it when your opportunity comes. And he certainly looks like he's taking his this season. He's developed his name, developed his career prospects, and who knows what it might bring from now. And I know a lot of people have sort of said to me about, do you think we should go and sign him? Well, I don't know what his situation is in terms of Huddersfield. I don't know what their plans with him are, but I would absolutely 100% say look to see what we can do there, because I think he's a brilliant age, obviously, good physical specimen, good attributes, and I think he's the sort of player that could play at League Two, League One. He's not somebody going, well, if we got promoted, would we need him? Would he be able to? He's certainly, the way he's developed this season, I'd go, do you know what? You'd back him to be able to take League One in his stride as well. So I absolutely would be looking to explore, keeping him longer. But obviously, first things first, he stays here for the next 13 games, plays a big part in us obviously getting up to League One. But yeah, absolutely. I think he's the sort of player that you need in your team. Hard working, does a bit of everything, and allows your more flair players, if you like, to grab the headlines, but does an absolute ton of the hard work in the middle of the park.
Richard Foster is telling us that Dan Crowley is in the starting 11 for MK Dons tonight. That'll be a rare start for Dan. John Parnham says maybe Lee Ndlovu could be as vital to us as Jatta and Dennis have been so far. Gary Phillips, Grant was really good when he came on. Him and Iapenda work well together. John Parr, I'd put both Dennis and Ndlovu in the starting 11 against Grimsby. To play them both, and of course Grimsby, poor defence, give them something to think about. What else have we got? John Parry, penalty gate. I would be more concerned if players didn't argue over the course of the season. Shows how much they care about their own and the team performance. Duncan Comrie, I don't think Mr. Patterson would let Dennis do that again while Jody is on the pitch. Goal bonus, asks Lippy Jane. How much do they get? I don't really know now. I suspect there are still goal bonuses floating around. The Well Golfer. You never let anyone else take a penalty on Sunday mornings all those years ago, Paul. That's the Well Golfer. I've worked that one out. Posh Golfer, the Well, Hollingwell Golfer. Stel, you and I know that is
absolutely.
The I must say, when he played for me, he was a specialist. Was Mr. Stanton? He was a specialist with a linesman's flag. That was it. That's where he played every week. All right, he might have got 5 minutes towards the end. Andy Eason, shame that Jody decided to head straight to the dressing room at the final whistle. Difficult for the youngsters in the crowd to understand why, when they love to see him celebrating with the team. Jody sort of wears his heart on his sleeve a little bit at the moment, doesn't he? But he's getting back to how he was when he was winning League Two Player of the Year, and I think that's good for all of us. Ian Hayward, Stell, what did you do to celebrate after scoring? Dennis comes across as he doesn't know how to celebrate. You weren't a big, you didn't have your little, you didn't have routines full stop, did you, in them days?
No, absolutely. I mean, the thought of me doing a blooming cartwheel and anything like that would have been sent shivers through me. No, I didn't really have a whatever run to our fans. That'd be it. But no, that was it. You lose. Honestly, it is that thing. You score a goal, you lose your mind for a few seconds because it is such a good feeling. It really is such a good feeling, and it is that buzz. And games are that intense, and you never know when that feeling's going to come. You never get sick of it, tired of it. But in terms of pre-choreographing a sort of celebration routine, I don't think I was ever that confident I was going to score enough. So I never had anything worked out that was any good. No, I just, no, I didn't have anything worked out at all. I was just delighted to score and then try and claim any that you were somewhere nearby, even if you didn't score it.
ZO, that's a name from the past, not heard from him for a little while. Norburn injury, the only real negative from Saturday. If a long-term injury, it's a big miss. Could we move a defender into central midfield, or does Hinchy come into contention, depending how many are out? I personally think Jack Hinchy does have a role to play between now and the end of the season, subject to the number of central midfielders we've got fit at any one time. Jurgen Pye, I think Jody moved away to calm himself down. I saw James Belshaw have a word with him. Ian Hayward's asked the same question again. Colin Metcalf, penalty gate. Let's not forget Dennis had just sat and watched the player who had taken his starting spot have a blinder of a game, and his starting place is now threatened. It was an understandable reaction. January transfer last year window, says Andy Walton. Whittaker came in this year. Ndlovu. What do you think of Charlie Whittaker? He wouldn't necessarily be the automatic choice to be a lone striker in League Two, would he necessarily? I felt a bit sorry for him on Saturday.
Yeah, he was the only one that caused any sort of problem,
Yeah,
didn't he? I mean, I say problem, but he looked lively. He scored 9 goals. He's their leading
yeah,
scorer for Tranmere. Now, again, before the game, we were talking on the radio about, getting goals from other areas for Notts in terms of outside of Jatta and Dennis, in the starting lineup on Saturday, I think there were, was it 9 goals, 12 if you include Leon Love's 3 for Barnet. We had more goals on the bench than we had in the starting 11 on Saturday. And then if you take the penalties out of it, then it becomes even lower than that. So we've got players in the team who aren't necessarily scoring goals, if you like. So there's a lot of emphasis on that striker to score goals. Now, then we go and score 5, but then 2 of them are Leon Love. If you're being honest, one's an own goal, one's a deflection, one's never been a penalty that led to penalty gate. So you're looking at players. I know it's something I've said. The likes of Conor Grant. Yes, Tyrese Hall earlier on in the season did score a spate of goals, but they've dried up since his injury. When Tom Yorpenda plays there, I just don't think he's a natural goal scorer. Got a couple. You want some more goals from different avenues. We've said about the centre halves haven't scored. The 3 that are there anyway now at the minute haven't scored all season, although they're getting closer and closer. So I think somebody like Charlie Whittaker, who could come and play as a number 10 and weigh in with goals, would have been a decent player to have. But that said, he isn't there, and he's gone to Tranmere, and he's done well there. So credit to him. But no, I don't think he's an out-and-out lone striker. But again, in that performance for Tranmere at the weekend against Notts, then you're going to do well to score a number of goals there. I mean, Amari Patrick's there, and he scored goals in years gone by, but he looked devoid of ideas. He looked like he wasn't that bothered at the weekend, like 1 or 2 of the Tranmere players did. Look, there was space there for Notts, and they exploited it. So, look, we're not too worried about Tranmere's issues at all, but I would just like to see, say, 13 games to go, and nothing has been secured, nothing's been achieved, apart from we're in a good position. But I would just like to see in these 13 games, we need goals from a few more areas. We cannot rely on the same 2 or 3 players to score as goals every single game, because you feel like somebody needs to pop up, between now and the end of the season. Somebody needs to pop up that we haven't really been expecting to score goals, and hopefully they do.
Yeah, Grimsby Saturday style. This fixture has kind of adopted more spiciness to it, really, over the last few years. There was the game where Grimsby won in a playoff, wasn't it, in the National League? They beat us at extra time at the death. We've had a few feisty moments with Grimsby calling games off, shall we say, very late on. When we couldn't believe it was ever going to be on. They were adamant it was, and then they get called off quite late. There's been a few shenanigans about Grimsby saying that it not should give us more tickets, 2,000 capped for this fixture rather than 4, which they've had once or twice a while ago. So there's a bit more spice to it. And of course, there's throw a 5-all in when, in Jim O'Brien's only game in as manager. So there's not been too many dull affairs, these matches between the 2 teams in recent times.
No, absolutely. And the players won't mind that. The players will like a bit of spice added in if it can be sort of built up a little bit. Notts will back themselves at home, 5 home wins on the spin. First time since 2023 that they've done that. They'll want to extend it. They'll be delighted to have a home game. And yeah, Grimsby be tough opponents. Such is League Two. Grimsby are one of the form teams in the table. Yet on Saturday, they get beat by Bristol Rovers, who'd lost the 3 previous to that, or 3 prior to that. So, again, things can come out of the blue. But you would say that they've lost 1 in 10, Grimsby. Similarly, Notts, So it's 2 good teams going at it, 2 informed teams going at it. But Notts being at home will back themselves, especially on the run that they're on. But the added spice, the added bit, if people want to build it up and say there's a bit between Grimsby, that just adds to the atmosphere and the atmosphere at Meadow Lane. And that's what players want. Honestly, that's what gets your extra 2, 3, 4%, whatever you want to call it, that adrenaline going when there's a bit of a build-up, when there's a bit of an edge to a game, a little bit in addition to any other game. So the players won't mind that at all. Yes, Grimsby players won't mind it either. That'll be incentive for them, of course, but it is a good game. Every game, now when you're at the top of the table or near the top of the table, every game has different permutations, connotations to it. What if this? What if that? All this, that, and the other. It takes on extra importance because we're getting closer and closer to the finish line. So both teams are chasing things this season. Grimsby will believe they can get themselves back in the playoff mix, and Notts will believe they can keep themselves up towards the top of the table, and who knows, automatics and going for the title. So plenty to play for. Both teams will give it their all, and it should be a cracking game, and looking forward to a decent crowd and decent atmosphere and a really good game.
Gary Phillips says, against Tranmere, it was nice to see us get a bit of luck for a change. Own goal, deflected goal, and we actually got given a penalty too. After losing to Bristol Rovers, Ross David Blore says, we're playing Grimsby at the right time now. Rosemary Mans, Iapenda is forever keen. He's all over the pitch fighting for Notts. Amazing player. Debbie Caton, evening everyone. Just joined you tonight. If MK wins, I believe they leapfrog us because of goal difference. Read Tom Iapenda, superb. We've got to keep him at Notts. Ross David Blow, who clearly got a bit of a downer on Grimsby, stuttering big time are Grimsby. I suspect their fans will be saying something different, and that they've sold all 2,000 allocation for Saturday. So I think it'll be a good atmosphere. Be decent Saturday. Be decent. Andy Eason wasn't too far away from Matty Platt being the first goal scorer. He had our first attempt at goal and didn't miss by much. Yeah, when was in the over the road on Saturday, Stell, Andy was there, and he was advising everyone that Matty Platt at 25-1 to score the first goal, which is not bad, is it? And so I think a few of the Notts flock lumped on. And then in the first meaningful attempt on goal, Matty Platt brought the ball down and volleyed it just wide. And I did clock it at that point. I thought, but Andy was getting excited there if he'd had a couple of quid at 25-1, first goal scorer.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a decent effort as well. It's not the sort of way you'd expect Matty Platt to potentially open his account for the season. But it's got to come, hasn't it? It's got to come. A goal from one of them has got to come soon.
MK have a 7+ goals better than us before tonight's game, says Dale Pykett. Joseph Crabtree, late to the party tonight. Me and my 10-year-old lad travelled in from York. Great atmosphere, 4 goals in front of the Kop, and a great team performance. You pies. What's the mood in York, Joseph? It's never really been a football town. Are people getting behind York now back into the Football League? It's a sort of a head-to-head, isn't it, at the minute with Rochdale? And of course, our former manager, Stuart Maynard, doing a very good job up there as we speak. Ross David Blore, I don't think an MK Dons win tonight is all that bad for us. I know we'll drop a place, but it keeps Walsall well below us. I'd go the opposite way, Ross. For me, I still think MK Dons are the single biggest threat to a top 3 place, to deprive us of one of those. I would be wanting a Walsall win if you were giving me a choice of result tonight. Mr. Littlebit 394. Read goalkeepers going down. It's a timeout, just like only the winning side players get cramp. It was funny still, wasn't it? The keepers 1-0 at half time, 2-0, 3-0, 4-0. Then the manager's right, but go down, son. You've got cramp.
Yeah, I mean, I've made a thing of it on the radio all season. I mean, it is just a timeout. You may as well save the embarrassment of the keepers, the physios, everything. Just say, look, managers have got a timeout to be used, between 20 and 30 minutes of the first half, because it's embarrassing. But that is a new one on me, that a goalkeeper feigning cramp at 4-0 down, so the manager can go and have a word or 10 with his players to try and emphasise the fact that you are playing for pride here. You could end up worse than this actually is. I mean, that tells you everything of how bad their performance was and how bad things were looking for them. So, yeah, it's a strange one. Again, another one of them things in the game that maybe needs looking at, but they'll look at it and look at it and look at it and probably take about 4 years to come up with any sort of solution.
Yes, we shall see. I think it is becoming front and centre of a debate now, though. So I do wonder if they'll try and bring something in for next year. Rosemary Mans, talking of goal celebrations, I've said this before, knee sliding should be stopped. Jurgen Pye, yes, we saw this. MK Don's next game is Cambridge away. Which is at the weekend. I think it's is it one of the TV games? I'm not sure. 12:30 kickoff. JJ Aviation. I remember Stell celebrating for all the wrong reasons. Bradford City and Des Hamilton. Greza Maxwell. Anyone see last week Curtis Edwards potentially being lined up for a move to Scandinavia? Wouldn't surprise me, Greza. Didn't we get him from Sweden? Somewhere like that. I think via Woking, was it? Something like that. Good show, guys. Bring on Grimsby on Saturday, says Robert Minister from Australia. Gary Phillips, Charlie Whittaker has bulked up a little bit now and looks a lot stronger. That has improved his game a lot. I always wish we'd kept him, says Rosemary Mans. Saw him the day he left, said I thought we didn't develop him enough and I wished him well. Greza Maxwell, I liked Curtis Edwards, had that injury earlier last season and wasn't the same player since. Richard Cooper, I love Iapenda, most consistent player of the season so far for me. How will Grimsby cope playing on a decent pitch, says Adi Clark, and a few emojis. Debbie Caton, Harold looks as if he may be up for the chance of bagging goals. I know he hasn't played many minutes, but he looks a very promising addition. Thoughts on the pitch, chaps? The well golfer, aka the dodgy stick man, signs of wear and tear and a bit bobbly at times. One thing I have noticed, Stel, I mean, we judge, it's a very high bar for pitchers these days, isn't it? Very high bar. No relation to 10 years ago, 20 years ago. By their own bowling green standards, I have noticed patches of knots, particularly in front of the pavis. Nothing wrong with it, but just not quite at that, really ultimate level it seems to have been at for a while. And looking at other pitches, when you watch those highlights packages on Sky, there do seem to be more than a few pitches that have gone a bit this year.
Yeah, me and Adam were talking about this off air before we say, you get there and you notice there are patches that are looking a bit worn. It's not necessarily affecting how the pitch is playing. And again, I am no groundsman. I do not know how to keep a pitch or anything like that. So the groundsman, anybody qualified will go, Stallard, you know nothing about what you're on about, what you're about to say, which wouldn't be the first time. But yeah, we noticed. Now, whether it's because the pitch is being used as in trained on quite a bit, because you notice there are definite patches in front of the warm-up goals at both ends are loose, and then down the sides where they do their fast feet sort of stuff and sprints pre-game. And again, it's still a top pitch. It's still a decent pitch, but when it was sort of relayed, wasn't it? Was it 2 seasons ago when we were promised this sort of Champions League quality pitch? It's it's not quite at them levels, but again, like I said to Adam, the other side is I also don't know how much it costs to maintain a Champions League quality pitch again. So there are obviously reasons for it. They do a wonderful job, the groundsmen, and they always take pride in it. But yeah, it is showing signs of a little bit of wear, but thankfully that the players, it's not affecting the play, it's not affecting the quality of games. But again, maybe somebody from the club who is qualified can maybe say, yeah, it costs too much to to get it absolutely looking pristine, or whether there's been infections on it. I don't know is the answer, but like you, I've noticed one or two patches where it has worn a bit thin.
Yeah, I believe the ground staff, among others at the club, watch this podcast. So we've now upset them well and truly. Because there's one thing, Stel, you cannot do in football. You cannot criticise the pitch,
Absolutely,
the groundsman. Because it's like family to them, isn't it?
If it was up to the groundsman, they wouldn't have the games on the pitch at all. So, they do a wonderful job, is what I'm saying. They are fantastically qualified, hard-working people. And like I say, one of them, let us know the reasons behind it, things like that. But we are not criticising the ground staff one little bit, just pointing out things that we've noticed.
Yeah, and if you need to know the address of the dodgy stick man who sparked this debate, Mr. Head Groundsman, just give me a shout, okay? I'll tell you one thing I do notice, Stel. With the lads have not even gone to the cop to do the fist pumps, and the ground staff are already bringing out those lights. Have you noticed? Literally.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll say that's why they've all got good tans. No, I'm joking. I'm not going to stir the pot even more. No, I say they're hard work. They love every groundsman I've ever worked loves the pitch, prides themselves in it. Absolutely. They hate the fact that managers want to use it as a training pitch during the week. And then they'll, how can you expect it to be pristine on a match day if you want to use it? I don't know whether not to use it during the week. Whether they do or they don't, I don't know. And also they have to put up with things like the away team running the squad members before and after games and things like that happens up and down the leagues now. So I'm sure they're cursing at all this stuff with modern football. But like I say, they are one of the hardest working people at football clubs. So I know enough from when Trev used to be there years ago that you don't annoy anybody who's got a pitchfork in their hand, that's for sure.
Yeah, but mind you, at the risk of angering them, don't have reserve games on them. Do you remember the old Central League, Pontins League?
Yeah.
Played in midweek, weren't they? Under the lights,
again, Paul, look at this. Yeah, but look at the state of the pitches when they did have Central League. I was in the Central League at the baseball ground. It was, like I say, it was spot a blade of grass any time after September. It was a mud bath. So that's it. You if you overuse it, then obviously it affects the quality of it. So look, somebody more qualified than me can come on and make the defence for the pitch, but I am, staying neutral. I'm very much Switzerland in this argument.
Derek Flowers, Grimsby won't be used to playing on grass, so that's in our favour. Dale Pikett, Notts are 7-1 fourth favourites to win the league, worth a cheeky tenner. That must mean we're something like about 2-1 to go up automatically, then I assume. What else have we got? Adam Kent, reciting the Cops chant to the goalkeeper when he went down for a strategic timeout. He's had enough. Yeah, remember, that was very good. And I believe at the end of the game, the goalkeeper, I think it was his first game, was on loan from somewhere. He acknowledged the Cop, and some said there was a bit of a wry smile on his face as he was clapping them. ZO, Sprinklergate. I did see this. Kings Lynn are being investigated for using sprinklers a few hours before the game was cancelled. It was against Kedwin and is it North Shields or South?
South Shields.
South Shields. Late cancellation, never happened before. Well, we had a few, hadn't we? But apparently, Stel, they've got an illness virus sweeping through the Kings Lynn camp. It was already wet. And then allegedly the sprinklers were turned on, and someone's managed to take a photo with a timestamp of the sprinklers onto this already heavy pitch just before the ref was doing the pitch inspection half an hour later.
Yeah, not the first story. Not the first story you've heard like that in football, and I'm pretty sure it won't be the last.
Yeah, I think there's a famous one when Tommy Docherty was manager at Chelsea, and they were playing a European team. I forget who it was. And Tommy Dock and he tells the story when he was alive, and he got the local fire brigade. They didn't really have many sprinklers back in them days. He got the local fire brigade to come out at midnight the night before and flood the pitch. Wanted the game to be on, but he didn't want the continental team, fancy Dan's knocking the ball around. So he turned it into a mud bath. Yeah. So, like you say, it's been going on from time immemorial, hasn't it? But yeah, I think Kings Lynn are a bit banged to rights there. Rosemary Mans, I saw a lovely girl with her family in the club shop on Saturday, and we and her family had a chat. First game at Notts, she was getting a yellow goalkeeper shirt with her name and age 7 on. Memories, isn't it, going down as a youngster for your very first few games. I think we're coming to the end of the show, Stel. We've done over an hour. Just to remind everyone that we will be, you and I, and among others, over the road on Saturday. Doors open 12:30. The Cambridge MK Dons game will be on, as well as others. We've got another James Belshaw shirt to win free of charge in the raffle. So if you are about and got nothing else to do, have a drink with us, a bit of banter, a few stories and anecdotes in the countdown to kick-off. Stella, as always, will have to depart shortly after team news to get on the air for Radio Nottingham for 2 o'clock. So, Stel, no more jollies this week, I presume. Looking, as we said, closing it down, looking forward to Saturday, a second successive 3 o'clock Saturday. Didn't have one for about 2 months, did we? It's Grimsby, plenty of away fans. We're on form. What's not to look forward to?
Absolutely, yeah. More of the same, following on from the weekend, isn't it? It's nice to have Saturday 3 o'clock kickoffs, isn't it? Especially when we've got 2 of them at home, in a week. There's no midweek games, so the players can get a full week's training in. And as you mentioned earlier, Notts Grimsby, there's a little bit of added spice. Be a good travelling contingent from Grimsby, making the atmosphere good. Plenty of Notts fans there. Well over 10,000, I would imagine, as long as the weather isn't horrendous. And yeah, looking forward to a good game. 2 informed teams. And hopefully Notts can make it 6 home wins on the spin.
Indeed. Thank you, one and all, for your participation this evening. Look forward to catching up with you on Saturday. I'll be back on Friday night with team news and injury news such as we know it. Thank you, one and all. We look forward to catching up with you soon. Cheers for now.
Cheers.